devil made me do it. A good cop never reads his old case files. That's what Hannigan had told him on his first day as a detective. But then Hannigan was that kind of cop. Hannigan would not read old case files because they might throw up too many questions. You nailed someone for a crime, you made it stick, and then you let the courts bang them away forever with any luck. There was no point reading old case files after that. According then to Hannigan's oft-imparted wisdom, old files were full of the questions you never answered, like why the man was seen running away from the scene of the crime was 5'3" with blonde hair, but the collar was a 6-foot black guy who was seen in the area a few days afterwards. Maybe all the case file was, in the end, was a wad of circumstantial evidence that added up to a case. Maybe that wasn't an airtight case, but it was at least one that would hold air long enough to get a conviction. And if the collar were a known bad guy, even if he didn't do the crime in question, he would have done something. So what, then, did it matter? One more lowlife off the streets. No sense reading the old case file after that event. Such things were buried in the recesses of lost filing cabinets for a reason. Just move on to the next case and find the guy who fits it. That was Hannigan's wisdom for you, as straightforward as it gets in some ways. Rick Richards was not a good cop. At least, not the way Hannigan described a good cop. Richards cared more about getting the right guy than he did getting a conviction. Richards wanted scum off the streets, all right, but he wanted the right scum off the streets for the things that they had actually done, not just what you could make stick to them. So Rick read his old case files once in a while and worried. Did I get the right guys? As he got older, and more grizzled than even the veteran Hannigan had been back in the day, he read them all the more. He read them late at night when insomnia bit hard at his mind. He read them and drank whiskey by the finger. 1 finger a night, 2 on a bad one, 3 if he started to find something in an old file that niggled at him. Tonight, he was on his 4th finger. It was 3 a.m, and sleep eluded him as he read yet another old case file, the St. Quentin murders. All the evidence pointed to Jacobson. All the evidence added up. Yet there was that one bit right at the end, the same bit there always was right at the end, because they all seemed to say it. All the really bad ones. And it niggled at Rick. An itch at the back of his mind, more so than usual this night. Jacobson was going to the chair in the morning. Old Sparky himself. Rightly, as far as Rick was concerned. The bad guy went to the chair. At least if he was guilty. But there was the nub of it. Richards had no problem with the death penalty. Some crimes, well, they deserved the ultimate sanction. But you had to be sure. Rick had to be sure. And not the jury convicted him unanimously sure. That was an easy sure. He had to be sure in himself. Sure he covered everything. Certain that he had the right guy. Or how do you live with yourself when you've sent a guy to the chair? So old case file it was. If only to determine once again that Jacobson did it and knew what he did when he swung that hammer. Leastways you did if you were the bad kind of cop. The kind of cop that read old case files at 3 a.m. on your 4th finger of whiskey. The kind of cop Richards was. The kind of cop who worried about that bit at the end. That bit which was always there. The bit they all said, or claimed. What if that was true? What if he really did make them do it? You know the line. The words they say. And you've all heard them say it. The devil made me do it. If Rick had $1 for every time, well, he'd be drinking better scotch for a start. They all seemed to say it. The devil made me do it. And Rick, being the cop he was, always heard them say it. Without fail, without exception, when it came down to the last, "The devil made me do it." It seemed to Rick that maybe there was a price to be paid, a debt to call in, and he had spent his life calling people in on debts like that, locking them up and throwing away the key, one way or another, be it jail cell or a bullet from his gun. He took them all in the end, and every time, every one of them, they all said the same thing: "The devil made me do it." At 3 a.m, insomnia biting, on his fourth finger of whiskey, he got to thinking, what if he did? Rick knew the rules. He knew there was some laws, the laws of authority beyond human justice, but if the devil did make them do it, it was the devil who should be brought to pay for the crimes. Someone had to bring him in. Someone had to go down to hell, rein in the bastard and hold him to account. Rick was raised Catholic, and there was only one sure way he knew to go down there, to go have a reckoning with the one who made them all do it. One sin for which there was no absolution, because you could not ask for absolution after the fact. Not for that one. Anything else you did, you could seek forgiveness for. You could take your last rites and confess your sins before God. Absolution would be granted. No harm, no foul. Except for that one. That one was a one-way ticket, sure as you like. So on a spring night, after one too many whiskies, Rick did the one thing he knew for sure would take him to his quarry. The devil made me do it. That's what they always say. Well now, the devil's going to pay, Rick Richards whispered to himself as he turned his Service 38 so the barrel pointed back at him, and with the grimmest determination, he pulled the trigger.